Hello and welcome to Conversations with Carrie. I'm your host, Carrie Marie, and today I'd like to talk with you about becoming empowered, being an empowered man, being an empowered woman. What does that mean? What does it look like? What are perhaps some of the obstacles on the way to becoming empowered? So I'm here to empower, inspire you, uplift you, and so let's talk about this. So one of the things I notice as clients come through is that one of the big things is overwhelm. And I've talked about this, touched on this last podcast, and I want to come to it again because overwhelm is one of those things that seems to affect a lot of people. And the effect of overwhelm, so what is overwhelm? Overwhelm is where there's a lot of something. I don't know how else to put it. I looked at the dictionary definition of this, and it's talked about talked about a dinghy being overwhelmed with water. It talked about being overwhelmed with emotion. It talked about basically there being a lot of something. It's kind of vague, in all honesty. So here's how it shows up in my clients, and maybe some of this will resonate with you. So overwhelm, when people come to me, can look a bit like they've got too much on their plate. They're saying yes to other people because they don't want to say no, and they end up with so much they're wondering, how the heck do I do it all? They feel like there's not enough time in the day. They feel like no matter how many to-do lists they make, they never get to the end of them. They get overcome by emotion in certain situations, like they find certain situations make them emotional, and so they feel overwhelmed emotionally. They sometimes come with an overload of information, and they don't know how to prioritize the information that they're looking at. They don't know how to prioritize the things they've got to get done, and so there's just a big mess of thoughts, of stuff, of emotion, and it just seems to be this big haze. And speaking from personal experience, I can honestly relate to it feeling like a pressure, a stress of needing to be more and do more than I physically feel capable of doing. I'm thinking, oh my God, how do I do that? That's in essence how I see overwhelm in my clients and how it's been for me. So I hope and I trust that this relates to you as well, and that you're resonating with this. Maybe with yourself, or perhaps you know someone who experiences overwhelm, whether it's occasionally or frequently. So why it's important to deal with overwhelm is because we get stuck. We can get really stuck. So we can get stuck in the mess of all that. We don't have clarity. We have expectations that are completely unrealistic, and we have a very busy mind. In short, we're stressed. Our bodies are so stressed. Because how do we deal with all of that? So, again, I'll talk from my personal experience, and what I notice in my clients is that there's a lot of tension in the body. And when our bodies are holding tension, we are holding it in our muscles, and worse, we're holding it in our organs of our body. Now, back in caveman times, when we got stressed, it was all good. Like we get pounced on by a saber-toothed tiger, we'd run for our lives, we'd get out the way, we'd shake it off, and we get on with our day. The stressor isn't there anymore. But in today's society, it's not like that, is it? Today's society is about how much you do. What achievements have you got? How much are you doing with your time? How you look? There's a whole lot of expectation. And when we feel like we can't meet that expectation of ourselves, of others, we get stressed. And this stress doesn't go away. We're constantly bombarded by messages about how unsatisfied we should be with what we have. Look at the adverts. Think about the news. How much stress is put on current situations. And taking COVID, for instance, there's a lot of fear in those messages from the government, from the press, from the news stations. And all of that gets stuck and trapped in our bodies. And that's another thing as well. If we're feeling overwhelmed with world situations, that's another way that we can get stuck. As in world situations. Feeling powerless that we to do anything about it. So how do we overcome overwhelm? Now that we understand what it is and why it's important. Well, let me come back to the start. How do we become empowered? So we become empowered by actually getting through overwhelm, through getting through these stresses. Of course, there are many stresses, and overwhelm is just one of them, but I really want to focus on this one because I see it so often. So I take a 3-step approach. The first step is actually finding that clarity through the mess. What's important? Discovering the clear vision of what you want in the future. Why is that important? Why do we need that clear focus and clear vision of what we want to experience? Let me share with you I'll share this quote. What we focus on is what we get. So if we're constantly focused on our overwhelm, guess what? We'll get more overwhelmed. We'll get more stuff coming in to make us feel overwhelmed. So what we want to do then is create a future vision where we can handle whatever comes our way, where we feel empowered and capable of doing what needs to be done, of being the person who we need to be to get those things done, more importantly. So let me give you an example. Not having a clear vision is like getting in your car and saying to Google, okay, let's go for a drive. I should use Google to tell you where to go. And hey, anywhere will do, right? Because you're not specific. But we don't do that, do we? We don't get in our car and say, hey, Kate, let's just go somewhere. We usually have a destination in mind. So we'll plug in, say if you've got a GPS or if you use Google Maps. I honestly find Google Lady very, very helpful at times, especially when I don't know where I'm going. And you'll tell her exactly where you want to go. You'll tell her the address, you'll tell the street number, the street name, postcode, whatever else it needs. And she'll give you a list of directions on how to get there. Step by step. Especially in GPS, it's wonderful because it just tells you the next step. It doesn't tell you all of the steps in one go. She just tells you one step at a time. And that's why I love this analogy. Because when we have our vision, we have our destination. We know where we're going. Now, if you were to try and compute all of the steps to get to that point, which quite a few people do in their businesses, especially and I notice this especially when people are wanting to set up holistic businesses because they come from the heart. They're not in their head. They get stuck with trying to meld the two together, heart, mind. So they often get stuck in this overwhelm of thinking they have to know all the steps and they have to know which order they go in and be able to do it all at once. It seems to be the way a lot of people think. Maybe you can resonate. The fact of the matter is, like, if you're driving at night, your headlights can only see so far. We don't need to know the whole journey. We just need to see that little bit ahead of us and trust that the road is there and we're going to get to where we need to go. And coming back to GPS, it's just having that trust that you're going to be shown the next step when you need to know it. I trust this is making sense. and that you're really getting this and you're really feeling this. So clear vision, we have a destination. We can lay out the steps. We don't have to know all the steps. The most important thing we need to know is the next one. And when you know the next one, that clears up so much of the mental mess. The second part of this is actually setting yourself realistic expectations. Because like I shared earlier, so many of the clients that come through my door have completely unrealistic expectations of themselves. They set goals which in no way could they achieve in the time frame that they've set. They expect such high standards of them that they'll never be able to achieve it. They expect to be able to do more than what they could physically do in 24 hours with the energy that they have, with the resources that they have available. And so they beat down on themselves. They have this inner tyrant that's telling them how rubbish they are and how pathetic they are and why bother get out of bed because you can't do the do. You can't do the things that need doing. Why bother? And that's really not helpful. What we really need is to be okay with being human, being okay with making mistakes, being okay with, you know what, I've got this, being okay with, it's okay that I didn't get to everything on my to-do list. I'm human. I'm not superhuman yet. I believe it is possible to tap into superhumanity, but that's for another conversation. Because we all have superhuman powers, but it's being able to recognize what they are. But anyway, realistic expectations is what we're looking at here, and going, okay. And like I said before about when we have that clear vision, some people expect to be able to do it all at once. You know, they have the vision, they expect to do all the steps all at once. It's like, well, no, you need to take one step at a time. Thinking about, let's take this another way. You go to the gym and you want to lift 100 kilo weight. You maybe wanted to be a bodybuilder. Forgive me if this doesn't make sense. I'll be honest, this is not my forte, but we'll see how we go with it, okay? So maybe you want to go in and you're like, I want to be a bodybuilder. No, a weightlifter. See, I'll get it right eventually. So they want to be you go to the gym, you want to be a weightlifter. You want to lift up 100 kilos. And so you go in there on the first day, you've done no training, you've done no exercise for goodness knows how long. And you go in and you're like, yep, okay, I'm going to pick up this 100 kilo weight. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to be there. This person is going to be there holding onto this bar, going, probably giving themselves a heart attack trying to lift this thing, and they can't do it. Why? Because they haven't lifted the weights they need to lift beforehand. They didn't stop with the 1 kilo weights, lifting those, getting used to building up their muscles bit by bit to actually eventually get to the point where they can lift 100 kg. Here's another example, because I've always wanted to do the splits. And so I've decided to, you know what, I'm going to work on this. And so an unrealistic expectation, especially since I have done no stretching for a bit, is to decide that, you know what, I'm going to do a front split straight away or a side split straight away. Guess what? I'm a million miles from that right now. It's not going to happen. So what do? I follow the process to help me to do this. I've actually got a program. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to teach myself how to do the splits. Something I've always wanted to do. Figured it was completely pointless to do it, but I realized that actually through doing that, I'll build up my flexibility. I'll build up some strength as well. So I figure this is my goal. I'm going to have a go. So that's an unrealistic expectation, right? To be able to do it off straight away. It's just not going to happen. I tried. No, I'm way off. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. So, but I have a process, and it's like I just follow the process each day, just following what the instructions tell me to do. And from doing that process, and I'm not looking at all of it. I say I've got a program. And it's laid out week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And I'm just going to follow what the guy says, what to do. And I haven't even looked at week 2. There's no point. I'm not ready for it. I'm barely thinking I'm ready for week 1, to be honest with you. But I'm giving it a go. I'm starting with where I'm at and being okay with that. So that's part of this too, being okay with where you're at, starting from where you're at and going for the next logical step. So realistic expectations, I trust that's sitting well with you. And the next part of this is about calming and clearing the mind. Now there's lots of different techniques out there, but why bother? Why bother actually spending the time to calm and clear your mind? If you are overwhelmed, if you're in a place of overwhelm and you don't have that clarity yet, your mind is most likely extremely busy, thinking about this thing, that thing, what someone said, what I did yesterday, what's coming up tomorrow. So there can be mixtures of judgment, of possibly even emotions around depression, maybe some anxiety, probably frustration as well. And those feelings and emotions come from thoughts. The thoughts come from beliefs that we have about ourselves. Now, whilst the beliefs are, change the beliefs, you change everything, that can be quite tricky to get to because it's like a root thing. But what we can do is do techniques that actually calm and clear the mind. Breathing, for example, is really good, and I highly recommend it, or I highly recommend that everyone breathes. But one of the things you can do is actually take slower breaths. Just simply slow down. When you do it, you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Highly recommend the breathing in through the nose slows your breathing down. You can't breathe fast through your nose if you're doing it, especially if you're intentionally breathing into your belly. And then out through the lips. Some people say pursed lips is good. I don't really have a preference. Open mouth, anything that helps you to feel like you're really pushing that air out with some energy, like you're getting rid of some stuff, is good. And that's a great way just to calm yourself down. And when you calm yourself down, you're telling yourself, I'm safe. Because you don't breathe slow when you're in stress, when there's something attacking you, when there's something, and your life's in danger. So when you breathe, you're sending a signal to your body, to your mind, it's okay. I'm safe. I got this. And if you haven't already, I invite you just to pause this audio if you like, and just spend a bit of time doing some slow breaths. Noticing where you're at before you do it, and then notice where you are after you do it, in terms of how you feel in your body. And if you need to do it a lot of times, like if 3 times doesn't do it for you, do it 12, do it 20, do it 100. You can't hurt yourself, and it's just whatever feels good to you to get you to feel more calm in your body. Okay, so that's kind of like the first part, really, of becoming empowered, is to actually get that clarity, and those 3 things really help to bring that clarity through the overwhelm. But you might say, yeah, okay, so I'm feeling a bit clear. I can see kind of where I'm going, but I still feel a bit stuck. And I see some clients quite a lot, like okay, we clear away some of the muck, but then there's still a resistance to taking action because there's fear there. They're afraid that when they do the action, they'll get rejected. Or, and that's a big one actually, is feeling rejected from others. Or that somehow, and they take the action, they're not worthy of the result. Or they're afraid of being found out. And this is particularly for people who are setting up businesses or are wanting to speak out about something, like an opinion they may have on something that they feel is really important, but they feel like, what if it's not received very well? How do I really say what's on my mind? Or I don't really know what the result or the how well someone's going to take me doing this action, or what if I get it wrong? We talked a little bit about being okay with of making mistakes, but even here, it can, when you actually come to do it, it's quite different from intellectually getting it right. So here it becomes more about taking the action. Once you've got the clarity, it's about taking the action, having the confidence in yourself to take the action. So what do? Well, you need to learn how to tame your fears. Say yes and do it anyway. And that's what Susan Jeffers shares in her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And so allowing yourself to feel it and take action, not letting it be something that holds you back, because the thing about success, any kind of success, whether it's in wealth, relationships, health, is we've got to get out of our comfort zones. We've got to step into something that's unfamiliar. And I want to share this with you too, that if in the past you've done things that right now you're thinking, how the heck did I do that? Well, back then your comfort zone would have been bigger. And if over time you maybe have done less and less and less and less, and I've seen this with people who've been out to work and they were in corporate and they had really good careers, and they've stepped away from that to bring up children. And then they're like, I used to do all that stuff, but now I'm ready to go back into work or set up something new, but I don't know that I can because I'm not the same person as I was back then. It's like they've got to learn how to be that person who's willing to take on challenges again. That person who's willing to take on the challenges of being seen, being heard, being able to lead again. They've led their family, but they haven't been in those kind of worlds for a while. So now what's become familiar to them is kind of shrunk. So they've got to expand again. I hope this is resonating with you. I see this so much and so often and I've experienced it myself where my comfort zone has shrunk and I've needed to expand. An example of that, and I want you to, this is what I appreciate as well about our lives, is that what we often see in one area of our lives is often reflected in other areas of our lives. And I'll give an example of food. For me, what I've noticed is that so my digestion over the years hasn't been working that well, and I got to the point where it's like, okay, I've actually got to cut out all these foods that I love, that are staples for me, but are making me feel sick. They're causing me to be in pain for like several hours at a time. I couldn't go to work, or sometimes even when I did go to work, I'd have to say, I'm sorry, I've got to go upstairs and lie down. I'm in so much pain. Or they'd actually say to me, look, you're doubled over in pain. What the frick are you doing on the floor? Just go upstairs and have a lie down and come down when you're good. And I'd just be in so much pain from what I was eating. So over the years, I've gotten this habit of restricting what I eat. Going, okay, well, that hurts. I will stop eating that. That hurts. I'll stop eating that. And so the diet kind of got down to a few basic, simple things. And it's amazing, actually, because some of those things were things that, to begin with, I couldn't eat. Like, I couldn't eat lots of rice. I could only eat, like, a handful of rice once a week. That's when I was at my worst. Like, a handful of rice once a week. Couldn't eat bread. I used to love quiche. Couldn't eat quiche. Couldn't eat pizzas anymore. Couldn't eat bread. There was there was crackers as well I used to eat. Couldn't eat those. There was chips. Couldn't eat those. Oh, there was so much that it just got whittled down to just a few basics. It's like, and it's like it happens gradually over time, so you don't even notice it. It's a bit like, I was describing this one. It's a bit like the frog in the saucepan, and someone's gently turning up the heat. And the frog is just like, oh yeah, it's a nice warm bath. And eventually it dies because it hasn't realized that the water's boiling. It's just got used to it. And that's kind of what it can be when our comfort zones shrink. We can just get used to it gradually over time, things shrinking. And you get to the point where it's like, but I need to get out of this. You can see that you need to get out of it, but it's become scary to do some of the things that you used to do. And I just wanted to just let you know that that's a perfectly normal thing to happen. That it can be just one of those life patterns that we have to go through, a bump in the road. It's like, okay, I'm here and I've got to get out of it again. And so the food is trying new things, like maybe trying some of the things that I used to have to see, does that hurt me now? You know? What other things haven't I tried that I could try? What are some spices that I could add so I can bring a bit of spice into my life? Thinking about food. And you can use that in, other aspects of our life as well. So it's understanding our core drivers as well. That kind of comes into this too. And a big part of being able to take action, is the second part of taking action, is about building self-trust. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Building self-trust is our self-esteem. It's about making commitments to ourselves and actually following through on them. When we have self-trust, we are more willing to take action, because when we let ourselves down, we break our trust with ourselves, and then we feel like, well, I don't want to make promises that I'm not going to keep. It doesn't feel good. And so we're reluctant. And as a result of that, again, our world shrinks. So building self-trust is so important in this journey. And the next part is about developing resilience. So when we know that we can feel the fear and do it anyway, when we know that we can trust ourselves, the next part is then to keep going, to keep building the resilience. Like a kid learning to walk. If you've ever watched a kid trying to walk, how many times do they fall over? It's a lot, right? They'll try and stand up, they'll fall down, they'll do it again, they'll fall down, they might get up and might walk a step and fall down. But do they stop? Do they stop trying? They say, oh, well, walking's not for me, I couldn't even stand up. No, they keep going, don't they? They keep getting up and trying, failing, keep going, trying, failing. And eventually, before you know it, they're running circles around you and thinking, how the heck did that happen? So developing resilience is really key to this. And it's about, as much as anything, the emotional resilience to keep trying, to keep going and not give up. Not giving up on you, not giving up on others, but especially you. Just allowing yourself to keep going. there's an element of grit and persistence and tenacity in that. And then the third part of becoming empowered, because I notice that people who feel overwhelmed, so feeling disempowered because of that overwhelm, they say they lack the clarity, so they need to find the clarity. Then they go, okay, I've got clarity. Now I need to take action. And they've got the confidence. Then they learn the confidence to take action. They have that self-trust. They have that resilience. But there can be, alongside of that, I suppose I should say, because like when they feel stuck, there's also this element of frustration. Now, through taking action, some of that frustration and some of the anxiety will be taken away. Anxiety about, well, what would it be like to do that? What's going to happen? What ifs? The frustration of being stuck and not taking action, or taking action and thinking, well, I'm doing this, but I feel like I should be doing this other thing. And what if it's not the right thing that I'm doing? What if I'm not prioritizing properly? There can be that confusion, frustration. And so, and this kind of aligns with self-trust in a way, but really building our core self, really getting in tune with that core self. That part of us that can it's actually part of resilience too when I come to think about it. But doing it on an experiential level, a really deep experiential level. So you're connecting with the core of who you are, your true self, this essence that is love, joy, playfulness, curious, full of wonder, that does keep trying. It is tenacious in that way. That feels strong, that feels grounded, that feels connected to everything around it, that realizes it's one part of a big machine, or one cell of an organism, because everything in nature is connected, and everything that is nature is ultimately energy. Everything in the universe is energy. And so this part of it is really coming into that understanding on an experiential level, really embodying that we are vibrational beings. So Joe Parnay put this beautifully, that everything in the universe is energy. Everything in the universe is always changing and transforming. It can't be destroyed, so it's always moving from one thing to another. And as it's moving, some will move faster and some will move slower. And how we measure the speed of that transformation is called frequency. And that is a scientific fact. Everything has a frequency. Everything. The table next to you, the chair you're sitting on, the book you're reading, the words that I'm saying, the thoughts that I'm saying before I say them. It's all frequency. The thoughts that you're having as a response to receiving this information, the sensations in your body are all vibrations, are all frequencies that you're experiencing. And what he was also sharing was that everything in nature has a purpose, and that purpose ultimately is to contribute. If there's something in nature that is no longer contributing, it dies. It withers away. And I'd like you to think about this, because I've met people who have given up on life, that had no purpose, and once they decide there's no longer a reason for them to be here, they died really quite quickly. Perhaps you can think of a time when that's been true. You've seen that yourself. So this part of the journey is about accepting our role in the world, in the universe, that we're here for a purpose, a reason, and that we can hold that strongly in ourselves, in our bodies, that we can feel it, embody it, and know that we are supported by ourselves by tapping into that core. And when I talk about core, I'm talking about our energetic, vibrational core of our being. And it's not out there, it's within our bodies. And we tap into that, and we can feel like we have support on the inside. And then as we tap into that and expand it, we can realize that actually we are connected to other things, and that ultimately we are supported. And not just from, like, and I say it's about getting it on an experiential level, not just an intellectual level. Like, we can understand that, okay, I go to the shop, well, someone had to, first of all, maybe it's a can of beans or something, someone had to grow the beans. Someone had to pick the beans. Someone had to cook the beans and prepare the sauce. And someone had to pack it. And someone had to deliver it. And someone had to buy it and sell it. And, there's lots of people that are involved in just simply you being able to pick up a can of beans. I mean, someone had to design the can. Someone had to design and make the can. Someone had to design and make the label and the glue. Someone had to come up with the recipe for the sauce. Someone had to maintain the machines to make it, assuming that it was out of a can. I would imagine that it would be made on a processing line of some sort. There would have been, say, lots of people involved in you simply picking up and buying that one can of beans. Isn't that exciting? It's like, how much support do we receive, and we're not even aware of it? So this part is all about connecting in with that experientially, really feeling it, knowing it, and not just the support that we get here on this physical, dense, energetic plane, but also on the spiritual plane. If you're someone who connects with angels, for instance, there's these invisible helpers around us who are also supporting us as well, and we get to tap into that aspect. And finally, it's knowing that it's okay to have boundaries and know our energetic boundaries. Know where our energy will go on forever in a way, but knowing where our energy stops in terms of our ability to interact with the physical in a healthy way. Knowing that actually, when I imagine, say, a bubble around me, and I have a filter around me that can filter out the good from the bad, the things that I want in and the things that I don't want in, and I can fill that space with my energy and really feel like it's okay to take up space on planet Earth. Really know that it's okay for you to be here and take up space, take up lots of space, not just, I don't know about you, but for my clients even, it's like this aspect of, I don't want to be seen, I want to go out there. So they build up the confidence to do that, but then they also need not a shield. It's not about shielding and protecting ourselves as such, but it's about filtering out the things that we don't need. Like, we don't need to pay attention to people's abuse. We don't need to pay attention to people putting us down. we can take from it if there's something genuinely, useful in there in terms of, okay, well, maybe I could have done that better. But we don't need to be taking on other people's energy. And so we can create this bubble around us. It says, yeah, okay, I hear you, I see you, but I don't have to take that on. It's not about me, it's about you. You can separate your energy from theirs. And this is really, really powerful. And in the space, when we do these things, when we're connecting with our core, when we're allowing ourselves on an experiential level to connect with the support network that we have on the physical and spiritual levels, the seen and the unseen levels, and when we can embrace our energetic boundaries, we enter a space of feeling really calm, really centered, grounded, and connected. Which in turns helps to take action. So we have a bit of a loop. It's kind of like, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Feeling calm, grounded, connected, or having the confidence? I feel like, from personal experience, you need both. So you have the intellectual, but then you have that deep experience knowing, I got this. I really got this. I've got the universe on my side. And I know that whatever happens to me is for a reason. And it's for a really good reason, because I'm going to learn so much out of this. And from that space, people feel really empowered. They feel totally able to take the next steps on their business, to show up on their social media, to figure out the next steps in terms of, okay, because like setting up business, for instance, is a really big deal. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And so with the clarity, the confidence, that feeling of being supported by the universe, by themselves, because they know, they've tapped into their core of themselves, they then start to be able to be the person who can make the business happen. Things start clicking into place. There starts to be more flow because they're not resisting anymore. They're not stuck in that, oh my God, what's next? And oh my God, I'm doing this, but I should be doing that. And instead, there comes a peace. And time somehow extends and expands, because as they feel less and less overwhelmed, there's more space to actually get stuff done. There's more time to see clients. There's more time to do what needs to be done with their products. Spend more time with the kids. They're more able to find the life balance that they desire through doing what they want, because they're being the person who can handle it. I trust this is sitting with you, and that you're getting this, because it's so important. So let me do a recap of that journey, because that was a really big kind of overview of how to get through overwhelm to feel empowered. So to become an empowered person who, from a place of overwhelm, you need clarity. So actually, let me start again. So we'll try this a different way, because I want to try and do it in a way that I haven't explained to you already. So to become the empowered woman or man that you want to be from a place of overwhelm, you first have to. With the overwhelm, let me give you the story of the overwhelm. So from a place of overwhelm, feeling stuck and feeling frustrated about feeling stuck, about not taking the actions, or the other thing you might be feeling is anxiety because you're not getting what you want done, and you can see the time ticking away. And so anxiety, frustration can be interchangeable here. So from getting from that story to become empowered, the first thing you need to do is to find that clarity, to have a clear vision of where you want to go, a clear, compelling vision that's going to pull you forward no matter what roadblocks are in your way. You need to figure out your realistic expectations, because we live in a society which puts way too much pressure on us, that has such high expectations and beats us down. So discovering, okay, what is a realistic expectation for you? What are you realistically likely to accomplish in your day, in your standards, in the way that you're showing up? What is actually realistic right now for you? And that will change as you grow, as you're able to take on more. There's calming and quietening the mind, so that mess of overwhelm, that busyness of the mind, thinking about 100 things at once or more, can be quieted down. Calming your body down, distressing, just using your breath. There's other techniques as well, but breath is so powerful. Just slowing that down, letting yourself know that, hey, I'm safe, it's okay. It's kind of like taking a pause. Okay. So once you've got that clarity, you've calmed your mind down, the next part is looking at that, getting out of that stuckness. Okay, I know I'm going, and now I've got to take the action, which feels scary right now. So find that confidence to take action is the next part of this process. So in that, we want to tame your fear, build your self-trust, knowing that you can commit to yourself and follow through over and over and over again. And to help you with that, we also need to build up your resilience, your grit, your tenacity to keep on going, to keep on showing up for yourself, for others, in whatever projects that you have going on. And finally, it's getting over that feelings of frustrations, of anxieties, of feeling like, am I doing the right thing? What if? And to do that, we want to connect you with your true self, with your core, that part of you that knows why you came here, that knows what your purpose is beyond anything else, how it is that you're going to contribute in the larger ecosystem of life. And tapping into that universal energy so that you feel supported from not just the physical realm, but from the unseen world as well. Because energy, you can't see all energy, right? We've got air all around us, vibrating. We can't see it, but it's there. And there are other aspects to that which we cannot see. So tapping into that, knowing that beyond a doubt that you are supported. And then finally embracing your energetic boundaries so that you can filter in the good and keep out the stuff that doesn't need to affect you, that has no place in your field. Allowing yourself to take up space. You have every right to be here. That you are worth it. No matter, and I didn't say this before, but the key to this, especially about being okay with taking up space, is about also acknowledging pardon me. It's about acknowledging that you are loved, that you are worthy, and that you are enough, just as you are. Just simply being alive is enough reason for you to take up space. And I think that is a pretty amazing place to leave that. So I'm curious, what did you take out of this podcast? What have you learned? What have you loved? What have you enjoyed? Did a penny drop for you? I hope so. And I'd love to hear about it. Because I do these things, I can't see your faces, and it goes out into the ether, and I've no idea who's listening and if any of this is hitting home or not. So I would really love for you to connect with me. And the best way to do that is to come and join me in the Empowering You Club. And I'll post the link in the description below. It's just a Facebook group. It's completely free to join. And you can just come and hang out. Please share what you're learning through the podcasts. I really appreciate it. And trust that you have an amazing day wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much. In bliss, Carrie.